Okay, so one of the things I noticed when we were working on the last cycle, when we were doing our plan, if you remember, we took a piece of notebook paper and we numbered all of the paragraphs, and as you read, you annotated. And the annotation for some of you was a struggle because you wanted to write incomplete sentences when what we were looking for is just a word or two in the annotation. All right? So that's one of the things that I had been looking at. And yesterday, some of the teachers at my training shared information with me on a different way we can plan. And I wanted to try it and teach it to you today so that you could use it if it works better for you. You obviously have the choice of how you want to annotate the text, but this new style might be better for you. It might be shorter for you. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is take a look at our text set. And everybody can see it up here. You don't necessarily need to look at it on your screen unless you're far away. Remember, on our chart, we want to read the prompt to determine what we're being asked to do. So we go directly to the prompt, no matter where it is. Remember, sometimes it's right the first page, sometimes it's after the text, but we always want to go straight to the writing prompt first and read what they're asking us to do. So it says to write an informational essay. We also know that as an expository essay, in which you explain how birds survive in their environments. Use information from the passages in your essay. All right, remember our chart. Once we read, we think, what are we being asked to do? So, what are we being asked to do, Haylani? What kind of an essay do we need to write? Well, what kind of an essay first? That's the topic, but what kind of an essay do they want? Anna can help her out.
Multi-paragraph essay.
What kind of an essay? Did everybody read what I just read? What kind of an essay do they want us to write? Jackson? Informational. What is the other word we know that essay by? Go ahead. Expository. So they're asking us to write an information or expository essay. What does an informational or expository essay do? What is your purpose when you write that? What are you trying to do for your reader? Aniket?
Trying to write a multi-paragraph essay with the label sentences in your...
Okay, so you're doing a really good job of reading this, but you're not listening to my question. As the writer, what is your purpose when you're writing informational or expository? What are you trying to do for your reader? What are you trying to do, Axel?
Trying to help them understand what the topic is about.
Absolutely. So you're trying to teach them, right? You're trying to teach them about this information. So what are you going to be teaching your reader about? What are you going to be teaching our reader about, Haylani? How birds survive in the environment. Perfect. Okay, so we understand the writing prompt. All right. And our next step here is now to write our temporary thesis. So stop and think. You don't even have to look at the text set. Just thinking about what they asked you to do. Turn to your shoulder partner and talk about what your thesis statement might be. Your shoulder partner's right here. Okay, what do you think? What do you think? Nolan, what did you and Annika come up with?
How birds survive in their environment.
Okay, I would say that is very close. The problem. Can you think about the word I have a problem with in that? How did you begin your sentence?
How?
How? consider the difference between these two. If I say how birds survive in their environments or birds survive in their environments. Can you hear the difference? Okay. So when you say how birds survive in their environment, it sounds more like a title or a heading, right? But if you just take that word how off of there and just say birds survive in their environments, now it's a thesis statement. Can you see that, Anakin? All right. Did anybody come up with a different one? Yes, Axel?
Birds survive in many different ways.
Okay, birds survive where in many different ways?
In environment.
Okay, birds survive in their environments in many different ways. Okay, all right, so that's better. And the thing is we want to pay close attention to the wording. Remember, we know that artificial intelligence is going to score this. They're going to be looking for those keywords to see if you actually read the prompt and you know what you're supposed to do. All right, so let me show you how to use our new little planning sheet that we're going to do. You'll be able to fold the planning sheet you used the day you take the test. All right, so on this red line that goes across, you're going to write your thesis statement. So whichever version of the thesis statement that appeals to you, we just want to make sure we have the word birds, survive, and environments. Those are the key vocabulary words that need to be in that thesis statement. Okay, so let's talk about our next step. Now, in our units of study for nonfiction reading, one of the things that a good reader does before they start reading nonfiction is they do something called orient themselves to the text. So we're going to go back to our text, and we're going to just look at it and notice the way it's organized to kind of see how things are going to flow and what the information might look like. So let's go ahead up. Source 1 is titled Bird Beaks. Now, just as a good reader here, I'm thinking bird beaks might be one of the ways they survive, that their beaks might be a way that they survive. And I'm going to pay attention. I'm going to go ahead and pay attention. Go ahead, too. Going to pay attention to the different headings here. Bird beaks, and we have long, slender beaks, short, thick beaks, wide, flat beaks, strong, curved beaks. So how many different kinds of beaks are they going to be talking about, Jackson? How many? How many did you see when we were going through? How many did you see in the headings? 4, okay? So we know they're going to talk about 4 different kinds of beaks. You need to thank the person who just gave you that answer. Or did you figure it out yourself? Okay. All right, so now we know source 1 is going to talk about bird beaks, right? And they're going to talk about 4 different kinds of beaks that help the birds to survive in their environment. All right, go ahead and take your fingers off of there. Thank you. All right, let's look at our second source. Really went down there. Our second source, source 2, it's called migrating birds. All right, who can tell me what it means to migrate? What does it mean to migrate? No one?
Move to another place.
Move to another place, right? And migrate, do you think that's a word I should see in your essay? Absolutely, that's one of those vocabulary words that you need to use in there, All right, use the proper vocabulary. So source 2, migrating birds, does not have any headings at all. Just slide down here. We don't have any headings there at all. It's going to talk about migrating birds. We know we're going to use migrating, but we're going to have to look closely in those paragraphs to figure out our details. The third source says bird talk. The third source says bird talk. Communication, right? How do birds communicate with one another? Apparently, this is one of the ways that these animals survive in their environment. So we have bird talk. Again, we don't have, I really don't like the screen right now. It's not very friendly. All right, so bird talk. We don't have headings on this one, so we really are going to have to look closely at the paragraphs to know what details that we want to include. All right, and that's the end. We only have those 3 sources. So we only have 3 different sources. What does the first source talk about? What does the first source talk about? Brady?
Different types of beak.
Different types of beak. What about the second one, Nolan?
Migrating birds.
Migrating birds. And the third one, Malia? Bird talk or communication, right? All right, so how many different sources do we have? 3. So how many different ways do we have for birds to survive in their environment? 3. What is one way that they survive in their environment, Aniket? What is one way that they survive in their environment? By communicating, right? Communicating. What is another way, Jackson? Migration. What is the third way? Malia? We have migration, we have communication, different types of beaks, all right? We are very lucky here because our 3 sources are each talking about a different way. How many body paragraphs do we need, Brady? 3. And so how many different ways do we have?
3.
Okay. Who can tell me what that means? What does that mean? What is that going to mean when you are planning your essay? Malia?
In source 3, you write the third body paragraph.
Okay, well, you don't necessarily have to do it in that order, but you know that one body paragraph is going to be about what? Different types of beaks. And the second body paragraph is going to be about what, Aniket? Migrating birds. And what is the third body paragraph going to be? Nolan?
About bird talk.
About bird talk. All right, so we are going to plan this a little bit different, not very much different than we have in the past. All right. Our 3 columns on our planning sheet are each going to become our boxes. So let's just use our very first one, the first source, right? And we can write a main idea sentence. All right, so we can come up with a main idea sentence. We haven't even read it yet, but just because we're good readers and we have oriented ourselves to the text, we've looked at the titles, we've looked at the headings. Brady, do you have yours written down already? All right, so look down at your main idea sentence. Is it a sentence? What are the 2 things we need to have for it to be a sentence? Who remembers? Anastasia? Subject and a verb. So look at your sentence. Does it have a subject? Does it have a verb? In mine, the subject is the bird's beaks, and the verb is help them to survive. Okay, those are our action words, helping to survive. Then look again, Brady. Do you have a period at the end of your sentence? Does your sentence begin with a capital letter? Okay, so now we can go back to our source and we can start reading in our source one. And what we're going to be doing differently this time, instead of you numbering, I'll get it for you. Instead of you numbering your paragraphs on your paper and writing and annotating, you're going to put your bullets now underneath your boxes. So remember, those are the details. So as you read, you're going to be paying attention. Who can remember how many different types of beaks are they going to talk about? Aniket?
5.
Close. Sadie? 4. So we can put our box here. And we know that we're going to have 4 bullets here because of 4 different kinds of beaks. And as you're reading source number 1, you can jot down the different beaks. One of them is curved, sharp curved. You can write down the different types. And then as you're reading, jot the paragraph that contains information you want to quote or paraphrase or summarize in your body paragraph. All right, so a little bit different, may save you some time to do it this way. All right, so as you're reading, you're going to just jot that down. You can still put the paragraph number next to it so that you don't have to go and copy all of the words onto your sheet. As long as you have the paragraph number, you can go back to that paragraph. All right, so today what you're going to do is you're going to read source 1 and finish your plan with your bullets. Then you're going to move on and do the same thing with source 2 and source 3. Your goal is to be finished with your plan before dismissal. That shouldn't be bad. Even if you go out to work on the art project, we still have about 40 minutes until dismissal for you to get your plan done. Now, guys, remember, the reason why you're reading 30 pages a night is so that you have some stamina and some fluency. If you notice that you are reading very slowly, it is probably because you are not reading your 30 pages every night in a Just Right book. This text is written on a 4th grade level. If you're not reading 4th grade level material, then it's going to slow you down. All right, so you need to make sure you don't skip that homework. All right, before I set you off, any questions? Everybody knows what we're doing? Yes? Okay. All right, go ahead and get started. Go ahead.